the Stepin stuff, man, I feel like it was a waste of time. Unless it's gonna be like a big deal, like in season 2, 3, 4, and 5, like it comes back later. I feel like you could use that to expand more on other things. Like we could have gotten more loyal in episode 5 instead of Stepin's funeral.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where though, like they are. Yeah, it was to to give more of it, because it's also mixed in with the Logain story a little bit. Maybe they're going to talk more about the Battle Aja, the Green Aja, Water Bonds.
Why not just kill?
Water Bonds are important later. So
they
like,
are,
again,
so the whole, I mean, okay, the whole deal with the bonds and why it's important is because, and as they've already started building, it's the idea that Lan is bonded to Moraine and he loves Nynaeve. That's it.
Yeah.
As far as season 1 is concerned, the whole importance of it is that Lan is bonded to Moraine and he loves Nynaeve. That's it.
Yes. And
but
also
you could have easily just have killed Stepin.
Right. So the other thing is too, you can pick and choose when to do this. Let's go over this for a second, because like we don't know how long that how quickly they're going to accelerate things. For example, spoiler alert here, for some folks, like Alana has bonds Rand.
Right.
You know, that like, what if Alana is killed? You know, what would that do to the Dragon Reborn? So when do you want to explain the consequences of losing of the bond between the Warder? Like it's a memory of light, spoiler, but it's like that's kind of see, you could have chose to do that later, right? Is right. The whole point. In season 1, does it matter to us? No. But if you're trying to lay a breadcrumb in season 1 that pays off in season 8, it is right there. Alana's, spoiler, sacrifice later on saves
right
a lot, you know. So like, if that is why they're explaining, I think, this Warder bond, and I didn't want to go into that, but that's why when you're adapting the whole series from book 1 to 14, and you want to lay a breadcrumb in season 1 that pays off at the end, like you said earlier, Matt, there's a roadmap here. There is a good roadmap, and if you know where they might go, that might be a reason why they do it. Now, did they need to spend that much time on it? Is it that, like, unless they're really gonna play that up a bit more in the series, and where they're gonna get there faster? I mean, like, I don't know, like they might. I mean, again, like the girls all bond. It's a Warder bond. They all do Warder bond with like you've seen Brigida, like that happens between her and Elaine, and then Rand. They're all bonded. Lan's bond is passed on to Nynaeve, Egwene, Gawain, all of it. So that, I think, is why they did it, and they chose. But it's, I don't know that they need to spend. It was the funeral, right? Maybe that people are like that's a bit much, right? That was the part that the funeral felt more unnecessary than explaining why he was going crazy and wanted vengeance and was trying to kill Logain. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I guess it's for me, I guess the thing is you have X amount of time to explain things that need to be explained. And in a television or any on-screen adaptation, to me, this just might be my thing, where you succeed in any story is by building your villain or your villains to be as ruthless, evil, maniacal as possible. I'll give you 2 examples. Thor: Dark World. I love Thor. I think Chris Hemsworth is great as Thor. I love Christopher Eccleston. He was amazing as Doctor Who. He's been great in everything. He has, like, by far one of the least amount of time as a villain on screen of any Marvel movie. He's barely in the movie. So then when you go to fight him at the end, it doesn't feel like it matters or is important because you've barely seen the guy. He doesn't do anything important or whatever. The Dark Knight, total opposite. You might as well call that movie The Joker, because the Joker's in it. Almost, it feels like more than Batman. And so every time he's on screen, it feels bad and evil and scary and all this stuff. I feel like you could have taken the time that we showed with Stepin, who's like, not really book big, important, whatever character, you could have spent that time talking more about the Dark One, talking more about the Forsaken, talking more about Padon Fane to make the impact of them feel more significant, like in the end. When Padon Fane shows up and stabs Loyal, it's like, who's this guy again?
Yeah. Yeah, and I get you. And that's the disadvantage of having 8 episodes versus 10. Because I'll make a case for what Rafe did with the and this is full spoilers. I'll make a case for what Rafe did with Stepin, right? Is that maybe he didn't need to go a whole half an episode with it, but somewhere along the line, because it is so important to how the light wins this one thing, it does need to be there. Whether you spend now the argument is, do you need to spend 30 minutes on it or 5 or 10? But it needs to be significant enough that the audience remembers it, because it is Alana's, I believe, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it's Alana's releasing of her bond with Rand that saves sort of the day. It's that, and we know that him going possibly berserk or him losing his Aes Sedai or someone who's bound to him would be kind of that would be what was gonna, that was the Dark One, or the Dark One's army, like their plan to kind of do that. So it's a big payoff later on. It's just how much time do you spend on it, and that's and when and where do you do it. And right now, it's one of those things that you look at, and this is why I said it earlier when you brought it up. It is like, yeah, look at other places where, so is that necessary over, like, maybe is there another place where in which you pull back on, I don't know, other gosh, I don't know, relationships or whatever, and not really, and then build up the dark, like build up the villain. Because you're right, you do have to build up the like Padon Fane. You do have to build up the villain and all that kind of stuff. You do, but I don't know. Like yeah, it's when I know they're going to use that possibly as a big thing at the end. That's the
right. And
zip it all together kind of thing,
And I agree with that, and I'm fine with that. But early on, like, your earliest stage stuff needs to be the most simple, is the way I view it. Is like your earliest stage stuff should be, here's the villain and here's why he's bad. And you slowly introduce that other stuff. You don't need to set up deeper level stuff. I do feel, and I know people are talking about the WARDER bond and stuff like that, but we already kind of talked about it in the episode before, and then we're going to talk about it in this episode, as well. But then the rest of the season is Moraine's just masking her bond, so it feels less important, because it's like, well, actually, I don't need it. So why did we build it up here if it's not going to be important? But then on the flip side, where they actually do a good job is the dynamic of Moraine talking about, Moraine with talking with Lan about how, I like her, the wisdom, because Lan is not moving with Nynaeve. So we're actually already getting this like bond thing with Nynaeve being, I can't marry you, and wisdom never marry, all that stuff. Like, so I feel like we were still getting that bond stuff. I just view that as, to me, if I were to pick any section that I would cut away from season 1 outside of, like episode 8, boom, I feel like you could have really, especially because we were in the White Tower for the first time, you could have expanded Loyal a little bit, who could have like given Rand a history lesson or something, or like, oh, what's this book you're reading, or whatever. And it's right in the middle of the season, and you could have really fleshed out a lot of the like WARDER stuff, or you could have talked about Luce Theron, or like, oh, this is this mountain you said you saw, like, here's the importance of it and why it's a big deal. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's stuff in the Two Rivers you could have done the same stuff with too. Like that you could go. I mean, you're picking one point.
I know.
You can go to you could go to the Two Rivers and do that almost anywhere. Where I'll agree with you is that, like, the way I think they could have accomplished the same thing with the Stepin stuff is, instead, someone said it in the comments, instead of having him have this less, like, basically show him go berserk, attack low gain and get killed, and then just get killed right there, and just don't move on with the whole funeral, bringing the ring back, all that kind of stuff, and just say, man, that's what happens when you lose your Aes Sedai, or when the water bond is broken, and really just like go for it and just go crazy, because then you didn't take as much time, like Matt is saying. You can use it for different things, which is fine. So I'm not disagreeing with you at all about like reducing it or changing it. I just think that it's like somewhere you had to do it. Now, I don't even know that you had to do it with that character though, because in the book they don't, right? I mean, in the book it's just mentioned, but I think it's like something that they're going to play up. When you're in the mind of Rafe in the writer's room, the fact that they gave it that much attention is the only reason why I'm thinking like, well, shoot, they must really be.
They really believe it's important.
Yeah, and that's something that they're holding on to. So
which just causes me to question. You think that's more important than like?
Well, that's why I'm saying
showing us a guy in episode 1 who's gonna be like the guy who steals the Horn of Valir and the dagger at the end of episode 8. Yeah. And all they say is it's the horn of freaking Valir, bloody Valir is what Uno said. But if you're just a show watcher only, you're like, what are they talking about?
Well, yeah, and the other thing too, so I brought this up earlier, the fact that Alana is in this and that she has as big of a role as she does, and they did the Warder thing, means like they must really be going for this storyline over others, and they're emphasizing it more. And that's shocking to me. I'm actually I'm like, I am actually shocked that it's a thing. But you wonder why,
Yeah. How do you even say this guy's name? Stanislas. I don't know. He had one earlier saying something about Padan Peekaboo, and it was hilarious.
That was hilarious. Yeah.
it was hilarious. But he has another one here. We needed to say we need to see the Dark One's impact on the world right now to explain Moraine's sense of urgency and reinforce it through the episodes. Yeah, that's where I agree. I felt like there was no weight to like what was kind of going. But to be fair, a little bit, the Eye of the World itself, the first book is kind of like that. When we read it in the podcast, I kind of said the same thing where I'm just like, I don't know, man, it doesn't really feel like it's that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And okay, Alan. Yeah, no, I get you. There are things here. So like we've brought up the prophecy, we've brought up like the Dark One lore, like Forsaken stuff. Like, dude, you chose. So here's to Matt's point and to credit on all the stuff we were just talking about there. You chose not to give us more lore on the Dark One, understanding of his prison, the Forsaken, and you did chose to emphasize the Warder bond. So that's where I'm like, you can choose to do different things. And I just saw a comment there from Alan Bird about it, and it's like, yeah,
call me Stan. Can do.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Yeah. Stan's had great freaking comments all night about the prophecy and stuff like that's another thing too, Matt. Like, he's mentioned it over and over again. Take a bit away from the Stepin arc or storyline, or in that, if you're going to include him and you're going to have that whole talk about the prophecies, right? Talk about the lore, make it lore building, and that's was more just about Moraine and like their dinners must be boring because they don't talk much. I mean, I get that. That's kind of
right. I mean, first of all, like the guy who played Stepin was great, and like the acting was phenomenal and everything, and it was super cool to see all that.
Yeah.
But when you're on a limited time schedule, every minute matters.
Yeah.
It matters, man. I mean, that's just where I'm at.
Yeah,
I guess I'm thinking. And
I think they were trying to make us feel the loss of that Aes Sedai as well too. And I think they were just trying to do kind of like, and it's cool, it's awesome. But like you said, where we start to criticize the series is like, hey, where is the prophecies? Where was Padan Fain during all of this? Where could we not have gotten a conversation with him in some like Murdraw or so, could we have gotten more of that? Because that's why the last episode feels like it doesn't hit as much. And I'm like, I don't know. That's just where I'm at. Other than that, that's my only real gripe about the season though. Was just that the way it all was strung together at the end, and then did all the decisions you made along the way pay off? And I felt like they were going to. It's just the way they executed it. I don't know. It's like I felt like leading into it, we were really good, and then we get there, we just don't even like.
And it's like hit a brick wall. Literally, it's like
I don't know what happened. I don't even know how to really.
It was like whiplash. We're just like, okay, man, this is good. Let's get what the hell just happened? Like,
yeah. So I don't know.
Okay, when do we get the prophecies in the book? It's not until mid book series that we get substantial prophecies. Not really. I mean, the first time we meet Min, she gives us Min in the Eye of the World tells you basically how the whole thing's gonna go.
Yeah, let me see. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think there's always like little tricklings. You mean, I think they mean like the characters experiencing it. I know Rand definitely, I think it's in the Dragon Reborn where he starts to really contemplate them as well. And so was there more in the Great Hunt too? I know Moraine is the one seeking information about that too, so she can help Rand with it. But I feel like it's all that time Rand spends, especially in the Dragon Reborn in Tyr, like prior to learning like that, he makes the decision to go to the sword that's not a sword, and like in the stone, the whole thing.
Exactly.
Kalendor, right? Like he reads the prophecies and decides to go there. Now you could still do that early in season 2, and I think we can pick that up, and that's what Stan's been saying all along, which is like, hey, they're not there right now. Like there's not been a lot of mention, but there was a book, there was a slight reference to it. So I feel like they'll come on strong in season 2 with it, and we'll get there, because he even sits up in his room in Tyr, doesn't he? And he decides what to do next. Yeah, like, do you go to the waste? And yeah, he's asking Tom about it, and he's, so yeah. Great thoughts though, guys. These are good.
Great thoughts. So okay, we'll kind of, I think we can, as we're moving into 2.5 hours here, we can kind of just close up. So just